Anita Sarkeesian. Those of us elder gamers or even gamers from 10 years ago know about her when she rose to her very short 5 minutes of fame for infiltrating the gaming industry despite not being a gamer herself and starting her own Kickstarter campaign to fund her own gaming reviews called Feminist Frequency, which basically tore apart so much of what we love about video games and tried to make it a feminist issue and destroy our female video game characters. And effectively, she succeeded in a lot of ways because this is what started a lot of the downfall of female video game characters being changed from iconic, beautiful, strong, just unique personalities, looks, all that sort of thing, into these more drab, bland, forgettable characters that we are seeing a lot more of today. All right, so there's good news yet, though. Feminist Frequency is being shut down. I didn't even know it was still up. So, I mean, she's already faded into irrelevancy for the most part, and hence why we're here where we're at now. I even particularly got into a debate with her on Twitter years ago talking about Lara Croft, and because, you know, she was calling classic Lara Croft a sexist trope. And when I further proceeded to ask why, she didn't really give an answer. I think the best answer she was able to come up with was that she wears shorts. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. All right. So I just don't have the energy for this kind of stuff. Now, before I even dive in this video too, I speak out about the retardation that feminism has come into and has become and how it has desecrated and ruined so much. But do not mistake that for me getting involved in this gender war crap. I'm sick of it. It's all over the place and we're seeing an overcompensation of it. Just because we can call out a lot of flaws here with feminism doesn't mean that we're going to sit here and hate on women as an entire gender. Just like I speak out against these feminists trying to hate on men as an entire gender. It's gotten stupid. We're seeing a lot more from liberals hating on men, which I have been vehemently fighting against. And now all of a sudden from the red pill side, we're seeing even more and more hate on women. Let's just get along, for the love of freaking crap. I am not even engaging in this right now. It's all over Twitter. It's all over everywhere. Even people I respect are feeding into this stupid gender war. Can we not? So right now I'm going to focus on the problems with this side of the gender war, but let's not overcompensate here. All right, so this is from Polygon, so we know this article is probably going to be incredibly biased in the wrong direction, but let's just read what they have to say and I will add my opinions in there. So it says, Anita Sarkeesian is shutting down Feminist Frequency after 15 years. I didn't even realize it was 15 years old. Wasn't her Kickstarter campaign 10 years ago? Around this time, I believe. I remember at the time having discussions about it, watching her videos and all this stuff. And at the time, I was like, whoa, wait a minute. This is stupid. And I was met with replies from peers saying, but is she wrong? But is she wrong? She's right, though. She's right. And I was like, I don't think so. And then now, I mean, just look at what we're seeing with gaming. Look at the thing is, I'm already getting ahead of myself before reading this, but the thing is, when it comes to video game characters, there's a reason why characters like Lara Croft, this is the one that women, even women, okay? Women like to cosplay as this version of Lara Croft, more so than the new one. Look at Mortal Kombat and the characters. Women like to, when it comes Halloween time and they're dressing up as the characters, who are they dressing up as? More of the classic Mortal Kombat outfits, a lot more than the modern ones. It's because when you have a character and a character becoming iconic and a global, worldwide name, recognizable name, they need to be extraordinary. Okay, there needs to be some element of something extraordinary about them. Usually it's the whole package. It's the personality, it's the actions, and it's the looks, right? But whenever you really detract from a lot of those. Like, say, for example, you have a main character who may not have the most extraordinary appearance. Well, they better make up for it in other ways. Maybe they have an extremely unique look that's not your ordinary, or perhaps it's just their personality or their mission, what they're doing, what they're accomplishing, and their actions that take that character to the next level and that make that character so much more recognizable. Let's look at Saitama from One Punch Man, for example. When you see him, especially in his standard form, when they don't draw him like, you know, even so, like, this is a bald dude, right? This is a bald anime character who doesn't necessarily stand out as this hyper stylized, hyper hot character, right? And most of the time with protagonists, we see that super hot character. Not that bald people can't look good. So sorry to my baldies. This isn't a drag at you. I'm just saying we're realistic here. We know that doesn't necessarily fit beauty standards, right? There's just some that can pull it off and that still look good. But Saitama as a character, he isn't extraordinarily standing out, right? But what makes him stand out and what makes him such a memorable character is the combination of his ability being One Punch Man in conjunction with his personality. I mean, the dude honestly had a great personality. He's pretty humble and all that, but he doesn't fit your like stereotypical protagonist in a lot of ways. So he's just a general, super likable character, and he's got this insanely awesome power. And so that's what makes him stand out. And so if you are going to uglify female characters or make them more bland, at the very least, you gotta work triple overtime on the personality. But with what we've seen with characters like Lara Croft and her changes, is that they've wanted to all around make her normal, make her basic, right? So not only did they take her over the top statuesque, Amazonian, athletic build and beautiful face and beautiful features, right? Not only did they take that away, make her look, you know, a lot more, you know, she's pretty, but she's pretty like in an average kind of way. A girl you could see at Walmart, right? So they've taken her, and you're already limiting the iconography of the character for that reason. So what could they do to make that better? Well, if they made up for it in personality, but instead we also went from the different personality. Classic Lara Croft, right? What made her stand out beyond her looks? Her looks was a huge part of it, but she had a personality that was even more bombastic than even her appearance, right? She was extremely rebellious, and she was just self-focused on her love for the raid, right? She was over the top in the fact that, you know, she wasn't held down by family drama. She wasn't held down by love interest. She wasn't held down by any of that because she lived for tomb raiding. She lived for the thrill of it all. I'm talking the classic video games, because other material changed that, and none of the other material matches up to what the classic video games were, right? So she was this over-the-top, rebellious, selfish, kind of like a anti-hero in a way type character who just, you know, you couldn't exactly call her a hero, because even though sometimes she did things that were good, she was so self-motivated, and she was a grave robber of sorts and absolutely desecrated a lot of the tombs that she adventured in. So it was her personality that made her even more over the top. She did what she wanted, when she wanted. Anybody who got in her way was taken out, good or bad. That didn't matter. Just don't get in her way, and you're fine. So it was that combination of things on top of her abilities, right? She could do backflips. She was extremely acrobatic, and she used her marksmanship to level the playing field against not only these dudes, but dinosaurs even. I mean, she was taking out dinosaurs. So it's just that larger than life, all three of those elements that made her such a global icon to where she's still memorable today. Now, if you look at the rebooted Lara Croft and the reason why she doesn't have as many girls cosplaying as her or dressing up as her as Halloween, or even have nearly as much of a female fan base as classic Lara, or a fan base in general as much as classic Lara, is simply because you take away all of those grand elements of the character. You make her more relatable in look. You make her more relatable in personality, where she's constantly whining and crying. And anytime she does accomplish anything, it's preceded by an emotional breakdown. Either she has to pep talk herself first and then have an emotional breakdown after, or whatever it may be, but that's how it is. And he even stated in developer interviews, every time she picks herself up, we knock her back down again. That's in the actual interviews. It's deliberate. It's a thing. So you have that. She can't do the acrobatics that she used to could do anymore. It's more grounded, so you really lose a lot of it. And I don't care how many people say, but I like the reboot games. Good for you. They're fun games, but are they going to stand the test of time? And will people 20 years from now remember her even close to the way they remember classic Lara Croft? No, let's be real here. So whenever you have a bunch of characters who are average in look, personality, and action, then that's a recipe for a forgettable character. And that is what a lot of this feminist frequency is responsible for, which I've hijacked a lot of this video talking about that. But anyway, so 10 years since the first release of Tropes versus Women in Video Games on YouTube. It's been 15 since Sarkeesian's oldest video and the start of what's now known as feminist frequency. Over the years, she and her team created several groundbreaking YouTube series, hundreds of podcast episodes, done dozens of collaborations, a games industry focused support hotline, and a Peabody Award winning nonprofit organization. Okay, they're really trying to gas her up for as if she accomplished way more than she actually did. Because I want to say Feminist Frequency on Kickstarter raised around $200,000. This is off the top of my head. I could be wrong, could be more, could be less, but I'm ballparking it off the top of my head from what I remember from like a decade ago. So that happened, and she took an eternity just to release the series. It took forever. Like, why? I don't know. But we didn't even think that was going to happen for a bit. And then, of course, these videos were just a bunch of reaches, right? It just, not money well spent, in my opinion. So it's the sort of work that's both essential and draining. Work that's so meaningful, it's easy to feel an obligation to continue, even in the face of exhaustion. That's why it's time for a break. I'm ending Feminist Frequency because I'm extremely burnout, Sarkeesian told Polygon. I can't vacation that off. I can't offload that anymore. Well, why do you think you've hijacked an industry that has nothing to do with you and has nothing to do with your interests? And let's be real at what happened here. She sees the gaming industry as a profitable industry because it is. And she wanted to insert herself and her wacko ideals into that. Even though it has nothing to do with her, why does she care? She's not having fun in the gamer zone, but she doesn't want anyone else to have fun with it either. And so whenever these gaming companies are pandering with these characters, they're uglifying the female characters, especially they're the biggest target with all this is the female characters. Whenever they're uglifying them, making them boring and this sort of thing, or even making them Mary Sues, or trying to make them take over male characters, which we're also seeing in television, in the nerd sphere, especially comic books, so on and so forth. They are trying to please and satisfy people who are not a fan of these projects at all. Why when you're trying to appease your Anita Sarkeesians who aren't even gamers and who aren't even going to spend a dime on your product? It makes no sense, but this is largely in part to the fact that they have hired a bunch of your Anita Sarkeesians or your blue-haired Landwell they-thems. They've hired a bunch of them. And a lot of these people, especially speaking on the blue-hair they-them side, they're not into these games for the gameplay, if they even play at all. What you see them do is perusing more Overwatch Rule 34 fan art between lesbian characters or gay characters. Like, that's what they spend their time doing, is looking at gay or furry fan art. Rule 34 crap. Like, people who are obsessing with that side of gaming that aren't even actual gamers. You know what? It's one thing to have a little ship. Like, dude, I love the Resident Evil ship of Jill Valentine and Carlos. I just shared this on my Instagram story the other day. I love it. I think it's cute. I love them together. But, you know, I think it's a cute thing, but it's not something that I would demand to see in the games at all. And honestly, I don't even think I would want to see that, because when I think of Resident Evil, like, the focus, dude, the focus is the zombies and the horror and all this stuff. You think when people are trying to survive and overcome all of these things, probably romance is not going to be the top of their priorities, since they're just trying to live, right? So there's a balance to be had there. That also reminds me of the One Piece mangaka who made a statement the other day on Twitter, also got a bunch of backlash because people were saying they wanted romance in One Piece. And he's like, hey, you know, I get a lot of letters from women saying this, but the target audience for my manga is males, and I don't want romance in it. And he got a lot of backlash for saying that for some reason. Alas, this is where we're at. All right. So, oh gosh. So let's see. Let's catch the point she said here, because this is just going to be a lot of stupid brown nosing drivel. So she said, okay, so it's not the first time Sarkeesian has considered shutting down feminist frequency. She found it had reached its natural conclusion several times before. Okay, yeah, so basically she got her bag and she's done. But there was always something new pulling her and the team back to it. But this time it's sticking. Beyond needing to rest and recover from that burnout, Sarkeesian deeply believes that there's value in ending projects naturally. There doesn't need to be some catastrophic ending. She says, I don't think we talk about that enough. You built this whole thing, and why would you give it up? But sometimes it's actually better that we can move on to new things, to take risks and do things that challenge us. AKA, she's covering up for the fact that nobody gives a crap and her feminist frequency channel is not relevant. She's already royally ticked off so many gamers. They're over it, and she's done with the backlash. So each episode of Tropes versus Women in video games tackled a different prominent trope. Sarkeesian appeared on screen and explained to the viewer not only what these tropes were and where they showed up in video games, but provided critical feminist analysis. Sarkeesian took on concepts like damsel in distress, which explored infamous trope of women being saved, women as a reward, which is exactly what it sounds like, and strategic butt coverings, an analysis of the way in-game cameras linger on women's bodies, particularly their butts. Dude, third-person camera view that she doesn't understand. It's not focusing just on their butts. That's just retarded. Me and my team were pioneering a space, Sarkeesian said. It was the very beginning of video blogging and internet video. We were talking about representation very early on in mainstream way. It wasn't a popular thing to do outside of academia. Yeah, you walked in and dropped a nuke and walked right out. And the rest of us who are actually fans of video games are left suffering with the consequences and holding on for dear life with a death grip to Japan and the games that they're giving us, because you've effectively ruined and poisoned a ton of the Western video games. She continued, and we did it. She's proud of herself. People paid attention and people started caring aggressively. Across 2 seasons of Tropes versus, Sarkeesian's work has racked up millions of views, earning her an appearance on the Colbert Report and a spot on Time Magazine's 2015 list of the 100 most influential people. Okay, all this stuff, this is just a giant pat Anita Sarkeesian on the back article, which is just stupid. But anyway, I definitely credit Anita Sarkeesian for the start of the downfall of what we're seeing in Western games. Obviously, I don't think she's responsible for all of it. People have taken her lead with the criticizing female characters and making them boring. And so appeasing the people who don't want others to enjoy beautiful video game characters. And while they don't anyway, and they wouldn't have played these games anyway. So not only ruining that side of things, but I do think that there's another element to be had here is in terms of that accessibility, not so much referring to, oh, here's the colorblind feature, or you can change your controls, or here's a new controller that people with disabilities can access a lot easier. Not so much that, but more so the accessibility in audience, how they're trying to meet the needs of the very common denominator fake gamer that wants to waltz in. They don't want an actual challenge. They don't want to play an actual video game, but they want to look at the pretty cutscenes and they want to feel included with gamers. So what we're seeing is these games that aren't so much video games anymore and that are essentially over expensive, over budgeted walking simulators with a little bit of filler content in between cutscenes that take the primary focus of the game. So that's a huge part of it as well. So I don't really think we're going to see much fixing going on in the industry until they start focusing more on video games being actual video games and start looking at their demographics of actual gamers instead of the pretenders. But hey, that's just my opinion. Let me know yours in the comments below. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. Don't forget to read your Bible today. I will catch you next time. And in the meantime, go boom.